Father, I thank you for another opportunity to go into your blessed word,
This call is being recorded.
be able to go in and look and see what you have for us in a world where people say that your word is invalid and everyone can be God except for you, your Son, and the Spirit. I ask you to help me to help our people to be able to understand that we have enemies and they seek to destroy us. Help me by your might and by your power to walk in wisdom toward those that are without and to give the truth of your word. Amen. Amen. And even so, amen. You know, one of the saddest things that I get a chance to opportunity to hear is people tell me about how the world should be. You tell me what's righteousness, what's right, what's wrong, who should be politically in charge, who shouldn't be politically in charge, or if no one should be politically in charge, and yet there's still going to be some kind of rule of governance. And they want to dismiss from, I want to say a priori, but I know everybody don't know that term. They want to off the rip. They just want off the top without even thinking about it, dismiss the word of God. And my question today is the gospel of the old and new covenant valid to the Jew first and then the world? Is the gospel of the new and old covenant, for those that don't know those terms, the Old and New Testament, is it valid for the world? You see, we have people that say today that you have your truth, I have my truth. If that's the case, if they have their truth and I have my truth, gospel doesn't matter. If everything is relative, the gospel doesn't matter. And if there is no right or wrong, absolutely, as people say, then why are laws enforced? Why is property confiscated? Why are people kidnapped? Well, we call it put in jail. Why those things exist, and why do we even get upset? Or say somebody offends us if there's no right or wrong. Where do we go to find justice? I submit to you that one of the definitions that one can work with is that the opposite of justice is oppression. I say the opposite of justice is oppression. Somebody steal your car, kidnap your child, maim you, rape someone, or even you. That's an injustice. It's an oppression. When you have a society that says everybody does right in their own eyes, that's what you have your truth. And I have my truth. And everybody has their truth. That's what it equals. Everyone does what is right in their own eyes. That means the ignorant get to do what's right in their own eyes. The sophist gets to do what's right in their own eyes. The person that's the mighty oppressor, when everyone gets to do what's right in their own eyes, and you go to a system that is called court, a legal system, and you try to receive a remedy for that which was taken, confiscated, that which was killed, or he who was killed, because your animals can be killed as well. They can kill all your animals and take your farmland. Don't play with me. When you go to seek a remedy, and the people that you go to for a remedy, whether it's the court, magistrate, it doesn't even matter if it's the Supreme Court of the United States. You could ask Mr. Dred Scott, what it's like to go to try to receive justice. And you're told that there is no justice for you. You have no rights. That's oppression. The gospel, the good news. I'm not talking about good based on what we call good. I'm talking about based on the very one that says when he saw light that it was good, the one that has proven himself not only to be the judge of mankind, but the judge of all the earth and every system that's in it. His good news. And his news that he gave for mankind after mankind had been created and determined that I would be self-ruling. I want to know, is the gospel of the Old and New Covenant or the Old and New Testament, is it still valid to the Jew first and then the world? Let's go and start looking at some scriptures. I'm going to open up my passage here, and not my passage, but I'm going to open up my screen. I'm going to screen share and let you see where I am. I'm here in what is called the book of James. But if you look, when I click on that word, you see that IA, well, that's not a great I, that's a iota, but Icobos. The sound of that would be Iacobus. It would be just like a J because that iota is going to give the same sound as a yod or the same thing as a Y. The book of James, Jacob, Jacobus. I'm going to read some from here, and I'm going to show, I'm going to start working on is the gospel of the Old and New Covenant valid to the Jew first. And I'm saying that because that's what Paul says in Romans 1:16, that the gospel is to the Jew first and also the Greek or the Gentiles. Isaiah talks about giving the light to the coastlands. We've gone through the book of Hebrews and we've seen that at least to the Israelites, we call them Hebrews, the oldest covenant, the Old Testament was very valid. And when you start seeing it move into what we call the New Covenant, it keeps the tenets of the promise that was given to Abraham. And the promise that was given to Abraham became the covenant, the promise of the covenants. And through him, all the families would be blessed. Therefore, Paul was exceedingly right to say it was to the Jew first, to the people that were Judahites. What, Judahites? Nobody want to hear about that. It doesn't really matter if you want the sun to shine today. It doesn't really matter if you want it to rain today. It doesn't really matter if you want to live today and your time is up. The Most High has power over these things. Therefore, he made the gospel to the Jew first, and there's nothing that I can do about it to thwart it or to stop it. Listen to what the scripture says here in James chapter 1, verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven in the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let the brother of low degree rejoice that he is exalted, but the rich in that he is made low. Because as the flower of the grass shall he pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof falleth, and the grace and the fashion of it perisheth. So shall the rich man fade away in his ways. I don't know if I'll be able to even get to all of that. Who is this person that we're talking about? James. Well, he tells you right from the start, Jacob, Jacobus, a servant. When it says servant, the word here is used is doulos. He said, I'm a slave of God. You know, people really don't think about themselves as being slaves or being slaves to something. You ever been a slave to your own desires, to your own things that you've been brought in bondage to? We call it addiction. Sounds nicer, don't it? You're a slave to coke, heroin, lying, stealing, laziness, so you beat people and get them to work for you. Slave to power, sex, alcoholic beverages, food, candy, bread. Are you a slave? James says, I'm a slave of God. Now, according to the Holy Scriptures, and according to the writings that we see in the Apostle Paul, you can either be a slave of sin unto death, or you can be a slave of obedience unto righteousness, which is life. Romans 6:20 says, when you are free, but now being made free from sin, you become slaves to God. And you have your fruit unto holiness, and the end, everlasting life. He says he's a slave to God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. You want to know why I say that? Because I want people to know that I know his name. I want people to hear his name. Someone will say it's Yahshua or Yeshua. It's a whole lot closer for those that don't know what the vowel is, and those that do. There are times he's called different things, but I would submit to you, it's different than Jesus. Jesus that I grew up on, the individual that I read about, that I love, it's the same one I love now. Well, he's the same one. But after learning the machinations, after learning the narrative and the things that were done through history, and to see Caesar Borgia and different ones that I showed on my last class that were made to represent the one that the Most High God allowed to be born in Bethlehem, right there, where you can see Well, what we call Africa and Arabia are combined together, landlocked, and it's called Bethlehem of Judea. And the sea that he's been made to look like he came from maybe the Caspian Sea or the Caucasus Mountains of Europe. And to see that it wasn't just done inadvertently, but it was done specifically because he didn't look like he should be esteemed. He didn't look as if he was someone that we should feel that was the creator of the earth that have taken on human form. He didn't take the form that the majority of those that would be able to mass print the scriptures will feel comfortable with. But he's the servant of God. He's the servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. And what's important in this passage is it says to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. It uses one of those kind of things that they used back during that time when they would write. They would identify their name, who they were. They would let you know who it is they were writing it to. And then they would use a greeting. Often you'll see that in the scriptures. However, when I mentioned to the Jew first, and also the world, I could say Gentile. It would work just as well. I don't know why I determined to just say world, but I chose that. We are told that according to Galatians 3:28, there is neither Jew nor Greek, nor bond, nor free, nor male, nor female. We're all one in Christ. We're told that Christ does not see ethnicity. We're told that we are all in one. However, the same people that say that there's neither Jew nor Greek, nor bond, nor free, nor male, nor female, then why is it that we still have a problem with homosexuality? Why is it then that you have a problem? You say you follow the Most High God when it comes to Jew nor Greek, but when it comes to male nor female, you see a difference. Where's your consistency? We're talking about superiority in nature. Superiority in nature. If you're going to say superiority in function, you're really going to have a problem if you think in Western, because the Messiah said, the Christ said, the greatest among you will be the servant. See, I can break that down in 30 seconds. Ever heard this sound before? That's the sound of the baby. The greatest is the mother or the father who gets up out of their bed and picks up this one, who wipes the bottom of this one, who cleans this one, who feeds this one, who carries this one, and who, when this one just doesn't feel well, who is the greatest, yet who is the servant? Who is the one bringing the food? Who is the one keeping warm? They're keeping the one warm, etc. When we get to be in the position of being like the Most High, we will learn that being the greatest is truly the servant. But not only is it truly the servant, there's a certain amount of responsibility and respect that goes with that. It's not a bossing around. It's doing things for the betterment of that other one. So when he says to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, who's that 12th tribe? We say they don't matter. We've been told that they're gone. We've been told that they're dispersed. No more Jew, no more Greek, no more male, no more female. It's all just the church. Let's look and examine that. What if we don't get to the 12th verse? What if it snows today? Another day will come and the snow can melt. Okay, so let's look at what we're looking at here. James. I want us to look at who James is. And then when I show you who he's talking to, I believe that I'll have a string of continuity that even if you disagree with me, you should be able to see the argument. I didn't say quarrel, the argument that I'm making. Let's look in the book of Acts. Let's let the scriptures show something about this man, James. He is the brother of the Christ. I've taught this book before. I don't like to try to teach things exactly the same way. They had an issue. There was a man named Cornelius. He was a Gentile. He was a Roman. I don't know what his ethnicity was. Sometimes I'm privy to a person's ethnicity, sometimes I'm not. Because you could be a Roman citizen and you could have different ethnicity. But let's just assume that he's a Gentile, because the scripture said he is. And Peter came and he, at the vision, he had been taught to go there, and the Most High had shown him the picture of unclean foods. And Peter said, he's never eaten anything common nor unclean. If you've been with me as I've taught the book of Leviticus, even the book of, well, just say Torah. I've shown you that the Most High God used ways of teaching. I call them training wheels. He used signs, symbols, animals, plants, etc. And so what he did was he set that sheet down and all the animals on it. Peter said he hadn't eaten anything common or unclean, and the Most High told him, "What I have cleansed, call thou not common." He did it 3 times. Then Peter said, "I know of a surety," after the 3rd time, "that God is no respect of person, but in any nation those that worship him," which would mean to obey, they're accepted. Now that has to be taken in context of what the Messiah taught and what Peter taught himself. But what he's saying, you're not just going to be excluded because you were considered to be unclean. You all had other gods. You all were aliens from the covenants of the promise. You all were without the Most High God's covenant in the world. And this man had already shown that he had a heart to receive and to do for the people of Most High Yah. His name was Cornelius. He ate with them. People got upset about it. There were some people that they knew that the covenants were to Israel. They knew that they were from the Most High God, and it was to them and not to the Gentile people. So they had a big to-do over it. And it gets to chapter 15, and they have a hearing. They go have a hearing about it. And that's what I'm reading about here. And they gave their statement. Paul gave his, Peter gave his, others gave theirs, and they went back and forth, and it was big heat about it. And the Bible says in Acts 15 and 13, after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, "Men and brethren, hearken unto me." Listen to me. Whoa. Can you imagine me in a room with people that are my equal, or somebody has been with the Most High for that many years, like Paul did, or walked around with him like Peter and the rest of them? And here James is, who didn't even believe in him in Acts chapter 7. And he said, hearken unto me. The Most High knows who he wants to put in position of authority. He says, Simeon have declared how God first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name. And to this agree the words of the prophets. Notice what he is saying here. He is saying that To this agreed the words of that which was written in the oldest covenant. This is what is in the Old Testament, in the Torah, in the writings, in the Psalms. This is what the prophets have talked about, and we know about this. Right now, we are not discussing with Gentiles. We are discussing with ourselves, knowing that we are the ones that to carry this word into the world. We understand that we are the ones that were sent by the commission that was given. And the Holy Spirit has been given to us to be witnesses unto him, the Messiah, in Jerusalem, Judea, and the uttermost parts of the world. And he says, and this agree the words of the prophets as it is written. Let's taste this now. Remember in Hebrews chapter 1, 1:1, God who in sundry times and in divers manners in times past spake to the fathers by the prophets. That's what he's saying. Verse 16, after this I will return and will build again the tabernacle of David. We're talking about a historical man. We're talking about a place that was built, and we're talking about a house that was built, a tabernacle. David built the tabernacle for the Most High, and the Most High built a tabernacle for David. A tabernacle can be a physical structure that's made out of wood, stone, clay. A tabernacle can also be an individual person. And if you think that I'm lying, how can you have a tabernacle that was built with animal skins and all that can be taken apart and walked around with? It's what the tabernacle was called. I built a tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. I will build again the ruins thereof. Notice who's doing this. He said he's going to do it. And I will set it up, that the residue of men. You see, you have some men in this world, they're not on the forefront. It says that the remainder of men might seek after Yahweh, the Lord, and and all the Gentiles, all of the Gentiles, all of the nations, see the word ethnos, all of the nations upon whom my name is called, saith the Lord, who doeth these things. Someone might say, his name wasn't called on them yet. Then you must misunderstood when he told Abraham, because you have done this, you've offered your son Isaac, and you kept my charge. Because you've done this, in blessing, I'm going to bless you, and multiplying, I'm going to multiply you, and your seed will possess the gates of his enemies, and through you, all of the nations of the earth will be blessed. You can start around Genesis chapter 22. I said Genesis 22. Start around the 16th verse when you want to study this on your own, but let's keep moving. And it says, saith the Lord that doeth all these things. Known of him are all his works from the beginning of the world. This is why when I'm in groups, when people are telling me about Islam and they're telling me about the Mormons and they're telling me about other religions, I want to know, how do you tell me that the world started? I want to know what your knowledge is about the origin of this life, the creation of the world. What's your limits of knowledge and where do you get it from? Notice what he says, known unto God are all his works from the beginning of the world. You can't read Romans chapter 1 and not see Paul starts from the creation of the world and bring it down. You cannot read John chapter 1 where he says, in the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God, and the same was in the beginning with God, and all things were made by him, and without him was not anything that was made. And I'm not going to quote it all. You cannot go and say that Paul didn't know about it, because he says in Colossians chapter 1 around 16, he is before all things. He creates all things. Somebody say it doesn't say it like that. The equity of it is what it says. I know what I'm talking about. So he says, known, verse 18, unto God are all his works from the beginning of the world. Wherefore my sentence, let it be resolved. My decree is that we trouble them not which are among the Gentiles, which are turned to God. which weren't with God, they turned to God, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollution of idols, that they stay away from anything that is demonic, anything that's of a spiritual nature that is antagonistic against the Most High God, that will promise or that will give them some kind of insight into the world, some kind of ability to do things that other people can't, some kind of ability to make money, some kind of ability to oppress people, and manifest it through an idol, whether it's a shape of a human, a shape of a dog, shape of a cat, something made to represent the sun and the crescent, something made to represent the sun, like what they did when they worshiped the sun in the Catholic Church, that they abstain from idols and from fornication, that they keep their body in subjection, and that they abstain from all kind of licentious sex. What do you say, Tim? You can say fornication is just dealing with another God. Well, the word here is porneia. Sexual immorality. When I was going to school, I used to be around the teenage boys, and I didn't know what they would talk about. They would talk about sex, and they talked about Greek. That's all I'm going to say on it. They would talk about all different kind of sex. I started reading and learning once I learned how to use a computer that there are people that have farms where they go by and they rape animals. There are people that have animals that have done that and lost the ability legally to have an animal, and some have even gone to prison. Tim, why you're not giving me any receipts? I don't want to even pull up their filth. Maybe within 20 years, it'll be legal anyway, the way this world is going. And from things strangled, some of the ways that they would kill the animals is strangle them for the idols. In some ways, they would just kill regular animals and they would eat the blood. That they're away from things strangled and from blood. This has nothing to do with the blood transfusion. Ignorant people that don't know any better will say that. And they have caused many of our people to die in Africa by keeping them from having medical procedures that would save their lives. It was the Jehovah's Witness that did it. Don't make me pull up the receipts. I have them. It says Moses of old time. Notice Moses. What was Moses able to write and compile? The first 5 books that they tell us to stay away from. What is James giving these people? What is James giving these people to tell the Gentiles after they've had this big dissension? What is he doing? Is he telling them, no, forget about Moses, forget about the prophets. Let's just hear Jesus. Or let's just forget the Bible and let's just love. Or let's just be spiritual. Here is a man that could tell Paul or Saul. He could tell Simeon, Thaddeus, Bartholomew. He could tell the other Judas or Yehuda. He could tell Simon the Zealot. He could tell Matthias. He could tell all of these people, listen to my sentence. And they listen. And what does he tell them in verse 21? For Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath. Then pleased it the apostles and the elders with the whole ecclesia, assembly. Tim, why didn't you say church? I know the word behind it is ecclesia. I don't know what all church is now. I know they dance. I know they have clubs. I know they have fashion shows. I know that they have orgies. I know that they allow Wiccans to come in. I know that they do Islamic stuff in there. And I know that they enslaved our people over here in America, and that they were told to enslave us because they had something called doomed verses from the Roman Catholic Church and the doctrine of discovery. And I watch how people live. I don't know what they mean. Because when somebody means what this would mean here, the ecclesia, I don't know. I have to investigate. It says, when it pleased the whole assembly to send out chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Yehuda or Judas named Barsabbas. See, that was a familiar name. We have what is called Judas Iscariot, and we think that's a bad name. The first Yehuda, if you really knew who the first Yehuda was, if you knew how he stood up for his younger brother, being the elder brother, if you know how he's willing to give his life for his elder brother, you would understand why the scepter will not depart from Yehuda, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, till Shiloh come, and to him will be the gathering together of the people. You would understand why it is that he is the one that has the what we call the Melchizedekan priesthood. It was given to Yehuda and passed on to Messiah. Just because one person has a name that's bad or that's done bad, let's don't just throw the name away and make it like it's nothing, okay? All right, good. It said his name was Yehuda, a Judas, surname Barsabbas, and Silas, chief among the brethren. You didn't read him. Yeah, the man is in italics. I just need you to know they chief. And they wrote letters by them after this manner. Listen, this is how they wrote the letters. You want to know what the letters contain? The apostles and elders and brethren send greeting unto the brethren which are of the Gentiles in Antioch. They got a place. And in Syria, Syrians, and Cilicia. For as much as we have heard that certain went out from among us which troubled you with words subverting, overturning, upsetting your souls. Now, when they say certain men from us, the thrust of what I've seen in reading this are people that didn't know. I'm not talking about the apostles. They dealt with Peter, but you had some that were called Pharisees. And you had people that had come in at one time 3,000, at one time 5,000. And all of these people are coming in knowing about Moses, knowing about the prophets, knowing about the writings, knowing about the Psalms, knowing about the poetic books, but not fully understanding that which had been hidden with the veil about what would be with the Christ or with the Messiah. So in many cases, they weren't trying to do harm. They wanted to keep people from going back to the Gentilian religion that was given, that was really put down hard on them from the Greeks. We read about that in 2nd Maccabees. And Rome had their own flavor of their wickedness. That's why they call Caesar August, the August one, or Augustus. And the different ones, they became deified and they wanted to be worshipped as God. But he says, certain of us went out from among us, which have troubled you with words subverting your soul, saying, you must be circumcised and keep the law. That you must be circumcised. Cut that skin. Make yourself look like you are a Jew. Certain other things that you would have had to do. And it says, to whom we gave no such commandment. James said, we didn't give you that commandment. You all weren't one of the 12 tribes. This wasn't a part of your custom. This wasn't a part of your heritage. You have a different heritage in earth. Now you are being able to be grafted in to bring in and accept the inheritance of the Spirit, the inheritance of the wisdom of the Most High God that you don't have, the inheritance of being able to have life eternal because you all have done, or you're doing the same thing that Abraham's men did when they received what Abraham had. How did they receive it? They received it when they came in with Abraham and believed Abraham and was circumcised. But we are not telling you to be circumcised. But the thing was is that Abraham's blessing went on them, and the blessing of Abraham that's going to come through the Spirit that's going to come through the Messiah is not going to come from cutting the skin off your penis. It's not going to come from killing an animal. It's not going to come from walking into the tabernacle. What it's going to do is come from having God's law now written in your hearts and in your mind, that you all may know him from the least to the greatest, starting with us and then to you. That's a condensed form of what you'll learn in the book of Hebrews, especially dealing with chapter 4 through 10. All right, it says, you must be circumcised and keep the law, to whom we gave no such commandment. It seemed good unto us, being assembled with one accord, to send chosen men unto you, with our beloved Barnabas and Paul, men that have hazarded their lives for the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I submit to you, when someone argues with me about what Paul has said or what Barnabas said, and I look at their credentials versus his, I'm just talking about hazarded their lives. When I look at all the ways Paul's life had been hazarded, Gary talked about the other night being shipwrecked in the deep. Imagine how cold that is. Imagine being on the ship and it's going up and down and side to side. Imagine being beaten with rods 5 times. Imagine being beaten with rods 39 stripes. Imagine being stoned. I mean, not even going to go through all the things he went through. It says that have hazarded their lives for the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. We have sent therefore Yehuda, Judas, and Silas, who shall tell you the same things by mouth. For it seemed good to the Holy Ghost. It seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us. We co-sign what he says. To lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary. Notice, there could be some other things that you do. Necessary means something. Let me explain something. I am not a necessary being. If I died today, would the earth stop? If my brain would not function today, would everything go into chaos? I am a dependent being. And almost everyone that you see that think that they are so much because of what they have, what fortune that they have, the power that they have, the people that will jump when they snap their finger, they are not a necessary being. Neither are the religions of the world necessary. The necessary being is the Most High God. The necessary things are what he has determined is necessary for life and godliness through the knowledge of him that have called us to glory and virtue. And by those things that he's done that, he has given us exceeding great and precious promises, that by those things that are necessary, we might be partaker of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. You want to read about it sometime? Go read 2 Peter chapter 1. It says, we don't want to burden you with no greater things than the necessary things, that you abstain from meats offered to idols, not the appearance of you going back into idolatry, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication. And if you keep yourselves, ye do well, fare ye well. That's another epistle inside the book of Acts. That little epistle is an epistle. I realized that at 17. But here is the thing. It looks like he's telling them never eat any meat that's offered to idols. But you'll see they gave them the letter and then they went back and explained how that works. But if you haven't read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, you won't know that the idol is nothing. You won't know the idol is nothing in the world. You won't know that Paul tells them not to eat it because it will damn you in front of people, but it will hurt their conscience. You might not know that Romans chapter 14, Paul still talks about it. One of the same people that were there and say, if meat caused my brother to offend, he won't eat it as long as the world stand. In other words, I'm not going to eat that among him, but I have liberty to eat the meat. So if you just read this one part and not let them go away from where they came together with the summation, and let the people that got the summation go out and tell you what is, you'll be able to go and tell people that they divorced themselves completely from the old covenant. Well, in the old covenant, idolatry is the same thing that the Messiah told in Luke chapter 10:25, when the man asked, what must he do to have eternal life? And he said, do you know the commandment? How do you read? And that man said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. And the Messiah said, this do and live. But what do those commandments mean? To love God is to have no other God before him, not to take his name in vain, not to make any graven image. Remember his Sabbath and keep it holy. Remember, he's the one that gave you deliverance. I submit to you that when he tells them to stay away from things, that's the first commandment. When you tell them to stay away from things strangle, you still stay dealing with that. And from fornication, when you go and you defraud your brother, fornication is defrauding your brother. Pornea. It's a form of defrauding your brother. It's a form of coveting what that person has that you want for your excitement. And they did it in a nutshell. Still, did they come up with something new? No, they came up with that which already was. It's still valid. And it said, if you do that, fare you well. And so when they dismissed, they came to Antioch and they gathered the multitude together and they delivered the epistle. I like the way that they did what they did because they kept it in line. So this is who James is. James is the one that's the brother of the Messiah. He is the one that they listened to when they had a big issue. And this is why some people have problem with Galatians when they talk about law. This is why they have problems when they read it and they say we're not under the law. They're not really looking at where did this come from, and they neglect reading chapter 2 of the book of Galatians. You don't have to go check that out. I've taught the book of Galatians. You should be able to find it online. Let's read some more, Timothy. Okay. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation. I think what I want to do is, I think right here, this is ESV. I got something in front of it. I need to move it. I want to make it go side by side with this one. And sometimes I like the way the ESV says things. Often, if you notice, I'll let you see both of them anyway. But I want you to be able to see when they talk about entering into diverse temptation. We don't normally use the word divers. We'll say different kinds. But I want you to be able to see it. You see that side by side. They not totally lined up, but this is in a linear. I'm like, oh, you can see it. It's bigger than the other side because it has more in it. But it says, verse 2, count it all joy, my brethren, when you meet trials of various kind. I like the way that KJV said, probably because I read it first growing up. Count it all joy, reckon it, put it on the account for joy when you fall into divers kind of tests. See the word? You shouldn't see it. Now you can see it. At least I can. I have something over it. See that word parasimos? Examinations. They call it test over here. So count it all joy when you enter into diverse kinds of trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Authorized versions say, know ye, knowing this, the trying of your faith worketh patience. Some of us, I said us, and I'm not saying this to just be inclusive rhetorically. Some of us, when the testing come, we forget that it's testing and we get upset or we get bothered. I remember one time something was happening and it was going on and I was stewing And Andrina said, all things, remember all things. Now, for those that don't know all things, the scripture says in Romans 8:28, and the preponderance of the scripture show that all things really do work together for the good to them that keep God's commandment and to them that are called according to his purpose. I know for some people, they say that's not what the scripture says. It says all things work together for the good to them that love God. But is it loving God, keeping his commandment? And I didn't want to hear it. And I knew it was the word of God. But it's like, I think I just needed maybe about 30 more minutes or maybe about another hour to be upset in the stew. And what you gonna do? Say, don't say nothing. Don't say. It's like, I know it, I know it, I know it. And you can feel that like acid, like a little rat on a wheel, like a rat on a hamster on that wheel rolling inside of you. But James says, count it joy when you're tested, knowing this that the trying of your faith works patience. Well, what would that mean? What the world would something like that looks like? Let's let Paul give us an idea. The Apostle Paul that was there at the meeting with them, they're on the same page when it comes to the things of the Most High Yah. Paul says in Romans chapter 5, verse 3, and not only so, but we glory in tribulation. What you mean, distresses? Also knowing that tribulation worketh patience. What do you mean worketh patience? Let's see how that looks. Tribulation worketh patience. And then it says patience, experience, and experience hope. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. Count it all joy, my brethren, when you enter the divers kind of testing. The testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect. KJV, or the authorized version, would say, let her have a perfect work, that you can be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. It says here, and steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete. Again, you have people say you can't be perfect. Why is it that they get away and tell you that you can't be perfect? And James is telling you that you can be perfect and complete or entire, lacking nothing. Please hear me. They had an issue they had to deal with. James is dealing with a group of people. Now, when you see him talk about this, wanting nothing, let patience have his perfect work, let's go back and let's look at something that is important for us to understand why it's important for them to have patience, why it's important for them to let patience have its perfect work, why it's important for them to count it all joy in the melu, or in the era in which they're in, instead of us just jumping to where we are. Notice, it's to the 12 tribes which were scattered abroad. Who are these 12 tribes that are scattered abroad? Who are these people? We know who James is. He's dealt with people that were coming into the faith that were not of the covenants. And yet there they are. Do they get to take the preeminence over the 12 tribes scattered abroad? The 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, he called them brethren. He told them to count it joy. Who are the them? Let's take a look. I submit to you that there are many people that say the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad are not even Hebrew Israelite people. They are not Israelites. They are not Hebrews. They are not descendants of Abraham. I went and got the receipts. I didn't pull up all of them because I know folk not going to want to hear it. But this is one of my commentaries. This one is called James, a commentary on the Epistle of James, Hermenia, Diblis Martin, or Martin Diblis. Okay. I highlighted this so that you can see that it's important for us to understand it's still to the Jew first. It's still important for us to understand that James is not coming out to what we would call the church. The church would be incorporated in what God is doing to the Jew first, the called out people. He did not put them last. You can't read the first verse and get that. But let's look at what it says in this commentary. If the readers are Christians, then the designation 12 tribes in the diaspora. What do you mean diaspora? Why is he saying diaspora? Let me show you. Here in James, when they say to the 12 tribes scattered, I click that word, diaspora, whole diaspora. That means the dispersion, the diaspora, those that were Jews that were scattered abroad. I needed that to be shown. All right. It says go back. Let me see how that thing did that to Tim. Open back up. If the readers are the Christians, then the designation 12 tribes in the diaspora must express just this Christian character. So then, we are forced to a metaphorical interpretation, and there is only one which is possible, namely to consider the designation, we're talking about scattered abroad, the diaspora, as the reference to the true Israel, for whom heaven is home, and the earth is only a foreign country, i.e., the diaspora. Hence, as a reference to Christendom on the earth, but in this case, it seems to me once more that there is no identification that the address of the Jewish extraction, since there is an expression that must be construed in a completely metaphorical sense. Break that down, Tim. These are not Israelites. These are the church. James is writing to the church and have written them down metaphorically as 12 tribes, but they are not 12 tribes. We don't need them anymore in our vocabulary. They are not necessary to be first, because if you're no longer a people, you're no longer first. You were just brought in. Let me tell you how that works. Imagine, if you will, a people that have been brutalized. You're talking about murdered, raped, burned, maimed, drug about on the ground, marched thousands of miles, men, women, and children, drowned in the sea, stolen from the land. And then after a certain amount of time, maybe 500 or 600 years, the people are told, you know what? We're going to let you be free. And we're going to say everything is equal now. Go ahead and make you a living, because you're free now. Oh, but by the way, we're going to bring some more people over here. We're going to let them have benefit. We're going to give them jobs. You still can get some, but we're going to make it where you can't get it. We're going to give them jobs. We're going to let them get homes. Let them take the skills you have and unionize them. Then we're going to bring other people in, about 4 or 5 sets of people or more. And while you out here trying to scratch a living by working for people as criminals, we're going to give them 160 acres free if they just live on it. But we're going to still say you're all are one and you're all are equal. Would that be righteous? how then, if I look and you're going to tell me that James is writing to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, to the 12 tribes of the covenant, to those that have come out of Egypt, those that have lived, those that have seen the work of Yah, seen his miracles, have gone through the penalty of going against him, being under the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, lost most of their language, most of their heritage, and now you bring in other people from Europe and say that those other ones that are the descendants of Abraham, Yishak, and Yaakov, Jacob, and that have all of the documents that the Most High had for them, you all are no longer an entity to be looked at with respect, or there's nothing that we can learn from you. We're over you. What we're going to just pretty much do is use something called benign neglect, or we're just going to ignore you, and we're going to ignore your covenants, your promises, the prophets, and say, we got this now, and we're going to take it all the way. This is the kind of thing that I see happening on this level. I brought up another one. There's one, Ropes. This is a different commentary. You see, this is called the Epistle of James, and this is, I don't remember the name of it. See where it say BTNS? Tim, forget the name of it because somebody may want to look it up. There's a thing, there it is, information. Give me the long name. The Epistle of James. The Epistle of James, there it is. Bible commentary. That's the name of a Bible commentary, Pastoral James. I just pulled up, every now and then I just pull up some of them. I actually thought it was Black's, but I didn't see it say Black, so Black's commentary. I was shocked that I was wrong, but I got over it. Ropes and Diblius. The question whether its members are Jewish origin remains undecided. Wow. The dispersion community of First Peter indeed seems to have a predominantly Gentile background. They give some scriptures. See when he says this, for our time past, our life might have sufficed us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles when we walked in lasciviousness and excess of wine, reveling, banqueting, and abominable idolatries. I'm not going to read all of those. It just says, to describe a Christian community as fulfilling or inheriting the role of Israel need not, of course, imply that there had been an absolute break with the empirical Jewish people. I noticed they keep calling people Jewish. That's not what they call themselves, you all. Mm-mm. That was something that was added subsequently. It's called an anachronism. It's something out of line, like saying that when I was little, we used to play CDs on the record player. No, they were not CDs on the record player. It says, to describe a Christian community as fulfilling the inherited road of Israel need not, of course, imply that absolute break with the empirical Jewish people. However, other evidence will necessary in order to argue that the membership of the Christian Israel here addressed is, in fact, Jewish in origin. In other words, what they're saying is, we don't have to say that the letter is just to them, but it is a great amalgam brought in, and that they all go together. That's more palatable because they were to bring people in. But when he's saying to those that are scattered abroad, are you making it that they were scattered abroad, or they just happened to be scattered abroad because that's where they were coming from? When you're talking about the diaspora, you're talking about those that are scattered in other places that were already there. I wanted to bring that up. I wanted you to see something. So now what I need to do is open up this. Give me a new share, please. On the new share, I want you to be able to look and see what is a Maldabar Jew. Because if it doesn't matter, things just doesn't matter. Maldabar Jews. You ever heard of Maldabar Jews? I want to come down. Let's see which fort I want to go. Jews of Maldabar Jews, Malda. Actually, I had it lit up, but it says in the state of India. I don't want to go to India. Mainstream. Let me tell you what happened. I had more than one open. So when I do that, and they were highlighted, the highlight left. So now I'm going back looking because I had it saved. Maldabar Jews, the genetic history of Cochin Jews of India. Cochin Jews, a small, it's a Cochin Jews from a small, unique community on the Malabar coast of southwest India, where in the arrival time of the putative Jews, ancestors of the community have been speculated to have taken place far back as biblical times, King Solomon era. A Jewish community in Malabar coast have been documented since the 9th century CE. Here we explore the genetic history of Cochin Jews by collecting genotyping, and it's going to go through and it will tell you that they're black. Notice they're Yemenites, Sephardi, Eastern Jews. Because a lot of time people have no clue that those kind of Jews even existed. It's as if when you start talking about the Jews of today, they all have to be those that came from Europe. Well, we're not going to allow that to allow us to not pay attention to what is and what will be, because if this is to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, I think we ought to know some of who they are. Notice, I want you to understand you got two things that I've shown you. You got one set to say it's the church. And in Western world, that would be the church that's based upon that which was given to us in America. Then you got one said, well, they amalgam, but there's really no differentiation. Yet I want you to see what the diaspora was before we see that there was the scattering that had taken place under Titus and Vespasian. May I do that? Yeah, I can. Let's look at what the Bible says in John chapter 7, verse 35. Then said the Jews, I'm talking about Jesus, where will he go that we will not find him? What was the context of that? It's rare when I forget what my context is. Okay, when he was, the officers going to come with him. Okay. Okay, he had been talking and nobody took him, and they want to know where he's going to go because they can't. He's like, you're not going to be able to go where I am, and all of this. And so he says, "You will seek me, you will not be able to find me where I am. You cannot come thither." Context. Then said the Jews among themselves, "Whither will he go that we will not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles?" What are the dispersed? The diaspora. Before you ever call something a church, there were already our people that were dispersed. That's what we're dealing with when we deal with Samaria. That's why the Samaritans and the Jews had no dealings. Go back to 1 Kings 17. The Assyrians took them, scattered them out of the land, brought in other people. When they brought in the other people did not serve the Most High God, and the lions ate them. And then they brought in some people that didn't really know what they were doing and taught them at least how to do a little bit, where Yahweh didn't let the lions eat them up. Okay? This comes from the very heels of the very time when James, in the earlier part of the 7th chapter, he told his brother, if you're gonna go up and be known, just go up and let everybody see you. Why if you want to be known, go see the people. And he told them, you go on up. The world can't hate you. It hates me because I testify of it. Well, in Acts chapter 26 and 7, when Paul is talking, notice what he says. Let's look at verse 6. And Paul says, "And now I stand, and I'm judged for the hope of the promise made to who? Our fathers. Our fathers. unto which promise our 12 tribes. Now, this is after the rising of the Messiah, after the ascension. He's still talking about the 12 tribes. He's not saying the church. He's not saying they're amalgamated. He's not saying that they're forgotten. He's not saying that somebody has come in and overrode us, took the benefits, took all the privileges, and now we're at the bottom. We're under the mighty hand of God to be cursed, but it's only until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And he told them in Romans chapter 11, don't boast against the branches. You don't hold up the root. You don't hold up the stock. It holds you up. And you don't need to be high-minded lest you can be broken off like they are. And yet, if we would come back and believe in him, we can be grafted back in. So he says, unto which promise our 12 tribes instantly serving God day and night, hope to come, for which hope sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews. Why be thought an incredible thing that God should raise the dead? I made some statement that I had no intention of reading, but due to the fact I know how people are, and I know I don't have to go but so far, I want you to look at what I said. Look at what the Bible says here in Romans chapter 11, talking about this Jewish, not Jewish. See, I get that mess in my mouth. Stop it. That the Jews, let's just say the Israelites that were scattered. Notice what it says. And Tim, why you say Israelites? Well, I know what it says in 11 and 1. Let Tim show you, okay? It says, 11 and 1, I say then, have God cast away his people? God forbid. I am also an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of one of the tribe, of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay? Has God cast away his people which he foreknew? No. What ye not what the scripture saith of Elias? How he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, they have killed thy prophets, they have digged down thy altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer to God unto him? I reserve to myself 7,000 men that have not bowed down the knee to the image of Gael. Even so, then at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. Go back to where I was in 21. This is a chapter that people need to learn before they run their mouth. Now notice what it says here about the Gentiles. It says, and if some of the branches, tribes are like pieces of trees, okay? It is. It says, and if some of the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree, talking about the Gentiles, were grafted in amongst them, not instead of them, and partaketh of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the covenants of the promise. Boast not against the branches, but if you boast, you beareth not the root. Gentiles, Europe, Genesis 10, 1 through 5, you don't bear Israel. You don't bear Israel. You can't go back and erase and dig up Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He said, you bear not the root, but the root bear you. Thou will say, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. I feel like a little child and I want to say, nene, boo, boo, but I'm not going to say that. The branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off. And you stand by faith. Be not high-minded. Don't be high-minded. Don't be those that say, you got to do everything that we do according to the Greeks. You got to do everything according to our systematic theology. You got to do everything according to Western theology. You got to do everything to the Roman Catholic Church. You got to do everything to the Lutheran. You got to do everything through Presbyterian. You got to do everything through Anglican. You got to do everything according to the Church of England. You got to do everything according to Reform. You got to do everything. You got to do, you bear us. We don't need no more Israelite. We don't need no more covenant of the promise. We don't need no more Torah. We don't need no more Moses. we got this. We got this. After I take this sip, I'm going to read it again. But I was feeling that in my soul. 20. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off. And thou standest by faith, be not high-minded, but fear. If God spared not the natural branches, talking about Israel, take heed, lest he spare not thee. Oh, I thought you would say, once saved, always say, that's what you teach. In your boasting, in your colonizing, in your, what you call world domination, in your Trans-Pacific Partnership, in your globalization, we know that we got to manifest destiny from God to rule the world and civilize the world. I'm not lying, you all. This is why we got a lot of problem, oppression, which is injustice. Take heed lest he spare not thee. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God on them that fell, Israel that fell, that are dead, that are damned, severity. But toward thee goodness, if, oh, this is so conditional, if thou continue in his goodness, if you do it, do you do it? Or do you think he's going to do it like you've been taught? Subjunctive, that means you got the ability to do it or not do it. It's a subjunctive. Watch this. Let me read it in its context. Behold the goodness and the severity of God on them which fell, severity toward the goodness, if you continue in his goodness, otherwise thou also shall be cut off. You are in it. He said you are in it. He said you are part of the fatness. You're part of the root. You are part of Israel. You are part of Israel insofar as being grafted in, not biologically in. There's two parts. There's a biological with the covenant of promise. There's a spiritual where those that are Israel biologically, they get the fullness of what God has for Abraham. Those that will not walk with God, they are Israelites, they are damned. Those that are damned by Gentile and they come in, they partake of the fatness and the blessing of Abraham and become children of Abraham by faith, but they never override those that the Most High used to bring about his light into the world. And if that's too hard to hold and to understand, it's probably because you haven't taken the time to learn it. He says, and they also, if they bide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in. I thought you say once you're lost, you can't be brought back in. Listen to the whole nation of Israel. If they bide not still in unbelief, conditional, shall be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. If you were cut out of an olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted in contrary to nature into a good olive tree, obviously your tree wasn't good until you wild, into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted in their own olive tree? Brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant of the mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceit. That blindness in part happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles become in. So then all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, There shall come out of Zion a deliverer that shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them when I shall take away their sins. If I were to read on, it allows you to understand that the Gentiles, they don't run it. They might hold a place for a moment in some places, but you don't have to capitulate to them. You capitulate to what God gave from the root and the branch. And when you look at the root and the branch and the fatness of the olive tree is the very thing that is the thing that the little leaf that the dove brought back from the ark. And the olive is the thing that the squeezed out and the oil come out as a representative of the Holy Spirit. And the dove that brought back the olive leaf is the symbol of the Spirit that came on the Messiah when he was baptized. I submit to you that us being in the olive tree would mean that we should be in the Spirit. And the Spirit is the very thing that ratifies the word of God to us. So when James is preaching, when James is giving this letter, he has authority. He has power in the assembly. Not only does he have power in the assembly, but the assembly know him. They listen to him, and he tells you to count it all joy when you enter in the divers of temptation. And the reason that you count it in joy when you go into divers temptation, we're trying to get patience. We're trying to let patience have its perfect work. We're trying to bring it back home so that we can fulfill all of that the prophet said, that when we bethink ourselves, when we come back to him, when we come back, he's going to establish us in the earth. He's going to establish us with his promises, and we will no longer be the tail. We will go back to being the head. We will be the light of the world that we should be. Bless his everlasting name that sit between the cherubim. I'm almost about finished, you all. Look at this one. I want you to see when they said that it's for the church, and it's not for Israel that James is calling the 12 tribes. I need you to see that it's important that he hasn't forgotten who he's dealing with. I need you to understand that if you can dismiss Israel, you should be able to totally dismiss the Oldest Testament, all of the things that we call the Old Testament, and everything that the apostles based what they said on. But look at this. Acts 20:41. Then they gladly received the word and were baptized. In the same day were added to them about 3,000 souls. These are Jews that came from different places. If you read in Acts chapter 2, it's called, they are the different parts where they had been taken in captivity. They came 3,000 souls one day. Okay. I believe it says one day, and they were added to them. It may have been 2 or 3 days. I think it's one. Acts 4:4. Howbeit many of them which heard the word believed, and the number of the men was about 5,000. Okay. Acts 20:21. So we got 3,000 and 5,000. That's 8,000. Correct. All right. Look at this. Acts 20:21. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brothers, how many thousands of Jews there were that believed, and they all are zealous of the law, and they were informed of thee that thou teachest the Jews which things we among the Gentiles. Let's read that again. And informed of thee that thou teachest all these things which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, and they ought not circumcise their children, neither walk after the custom. What is it therefore that the multitudes must need to come together? For they are come to hear that thou art come. Do therefore this, we say unto thee, we have 4 men which have vowed a vow upon them. Take and purify yourselves with them, and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads, and that they may know that all those things whereof they were informed concerning thee are nothing, but thou thyself also walk orderly, and keepeth the law. As touching the Gentiles, we believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication. I submit to you, out of all of the millions that would come there through Passover, through the different feasts, there's at least thousands of them that had heard the truth, and they had gone back to where they were, and the people knew what they believed. And to submit and say that Paul, when James was writing, he didn't know what he was doing, that he didn't mean that he was talking about our people, you have to scratch the level of credulity. Because as we said before, he knew, and they were grafted in. The other people were. Lastly, on this historical little tidbit that I wanted us to see, to understand the book of James, to understand the importance of why it's to the Jew first, so that you will begin to understand why it is the oldest testament is the very foundation of what we call the New Testament. This book here is called the 13th Tribe Original Edition. I own it in Audible. You can get it in Audible. I also have it here. Got it. I believe I have it in paperback as well as in Kindle. Why would you have it so many times? Because of the fact when you come to passages like this, when you come to passages where you start to see that people don't believe the word of God, that they're going to wipe away everything and make it gentilic, and that the people that are scattered abroad have nothing to do with our people, that it has nothing to do with Israelites. I'm going to submit to you that the people that most of the time we think are Israelites, they were not called Israelites. Most of the time they still aren't called Israelites, but they are called, or that they receive a title that they received, that they picked on their own. Now, this is a book called The 13th Tribe. I didn't write this book. Arthur Koestler wrote this book. I didn't read it, but I want to give you I want to give you a few highlights of it, and then I'll give my conclusion. Arthur Koestler points out in striking simile that they were a third force of their day, and they chose an unexpected method of resisting Western pressure to become Christian, and Eastern to adopt Islam. So imagine if you over there in that part of the world, over there toward China, that's the East. Over here toward Africa going toward America, that's the West. Let's say you converging on the area close to Arabia, area where we talk about Turkish area. So it says they resist Western pressure to become Christian. This is around 700s AD, and the Eastern to adopt Islam, rejecting both. They converted to Judaism. They were not to start with. In the second part of his book, The Heritage, the author speculates about the ultimate faith of the Khazars. They are called Khazars. You can go to Khazaria.com and learn about them. They have their own website. And their impact on racial composition and social heritage of modern Jewry. Yet, it could be confirmed the term anti-Semitism would be void of meaning. It is based, he writes, on a misapprehension shared by the killers and their victim, the story of the Khazar Empire, and it slowly emerges from the past and begins to look like a cruel hoax which most history has ever perpetrated. Keep going, Tim. The 13th tribe. When you don't know anything about the 13th tribe, you don't know anything about the history, and you begin to say that they gave you something. In 737, it's ironically the last battle in the war, AD 737, ended in the Khazaria defeat. But check this out. By that time, the impetus of the Muslim Holy War was spent. You have Muslims fighting on one side, Christians fighting on another. Christian was called Catholic, Muslim was called Islam, and these people, the Khazarians, they didn't want to be under Islam, they didn't want to be under the Roman Empire, the church, and they decided to be Judaism, okay? This is what's going on. It says the Holy War spent and the Caliphate was wrought by internal dissensions. And the Arab invaders retraced their steps across the Caucasus Mountain, whenever the men are named Blumenbach, talking about the heads, the skull being that great. The Caucasus was considered in Georgia to be the white, being the great, the best of all. If you go study phrenology or you read in Johann, I think it's Blumenbach. These are the things that were used to say that we black people were lazy, were no good, and we didn't have intelligence. It said they went across the Caucasus without having gained any permanent foothold in the north, whereas the Khazars became more powerful than they had previously been. Listen, it says, one of the most recent comments is found in a work by the Hungarian Marxist historian Dr. Antal Botha. His book, The Magyar Society of the 8th and 9th centuries, has several chapters on the Khazars, and during most of that period, the Hungarians were ruled by them. Yet their conversion to Judaism is discussed in a single paragraph with obvious embarrassment. It reads, our investigations cannot go into the problems pertaining to the history of ideas, but we must call the reader's attention to the matters of the Khazar kingdom state religion. It was the Jewish faith which became the official religion of the ruling strata of society. Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as a state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people could be the subject of interesting speculations. We shall, however, confine ourselves to the remark that this official conversion, in a defiance of Christian proselytizing of the Byzantium and Muslim influence from the East, and in spite of the political pressure of the two powers to a religion which had no support from any political power, but was persecuted by nearly all, has come to surprise to all historians concerning the Khazars cannot be considered as accidental, but must be regarded as a sign of the independent policy pursued by that kingdom. Do I have much more? Yeah, but I ain't gonna read it. If you want more, I can give it to you in the future. But when I listened to the book, it boiled down to this. Charlemagne was able to stop the Muslims, as they say. They were going to take over those Turkish people. And when they were going to take over those Turkish people, instead of them deciding we're going to go with one or the other, be destroyed, he called leaders from each one. He called those that knew Torah, Judaism, and he called those that were not caliphates. I don't know if it was imams but whoever was in charge, because they may have another name. And then they called those from the church, and they determined which one they would do, because those were the three religions that were accepted. And this is how you get your Polish Jews and you get Russian Jews and all of this from this. I submit to you, if you read that James to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, and you read it as if it's talking about Russia, Poland, Black Sea, Khazaria, they hadn't accepted at that juncture the teachings of Torah at that time. The Catholic Church, they banned Sabbath. They banned much of the teachings of Torah and amalgamated it into a state religion that was about power, and they perpetrated on the earth injustice. So when you read the book of James, if you read it from the vantage point of what he was saying, My brethren, you count it joy when you enter into diverse temptation, because the trying of your faith worketh patience. But if we go and say history doesn't matter, then when we read the scriptures, we're going to read it with a historical bent. And the very things that we read it as will be very thing that will work against us. Was I able to finish? No. Am I upset? No. But I did want us to at least be able to understand when we're reading this, we're reading something historical. We get too many people telling us that's in the past, let it go. James was in the past. Close to 2,000 years ago, give it about 7 years, and that's about during the time when the Messiah was killed. So let's say maybe about 20 years, it'll be about 2,020 years, okay? The 12 tribes still exist. I want you to remember that. They were scattered. They would have counted joy then. Show me anywhere where they were regathered together. Please don't tell me 1948, because those people didn't come from all over the world. They had 12 years of punishment. I'm working on trying to put something together so I can put it together slightly that show what kind of punishment the Most High said he was going to do in Leviticus chapter 6, and show how 26 show the same thing that's happened in Revelation with the 7 plagues, the 7 bowls, the 7 chalices, well, the bowls are the chalices, and the 7 churches, etc., so that it will make sense. And he said for them to count it all joy. He was not writing primarily to what we would call the Gentile church, the Western church. He was talking to those that had suffered and that was broken off and needed to be grafted back in, and to those that were the remnants that would give them something to teach the people. Will it be applicable to Gentiles if they don't boast? If they'll fall in line with the covenants of the promise, with the teaching that he has? Because the one part that I didn't get to, but I will get to, when he says, if any of you lack wisdom, when we get to that, I plan to show you that the wisdom that he's talking about is not just a willy-nilly wisdom. It's going to be the wisdom that you find in Deuteronomy chapter 4. James is fully cognizant of it. He's not writing from a gentilic point of view. He's written from Israelite that's a remnant, that's trying to bring his other brothers back home so that the Most High can continually do what he was going to do in the earth. Hopefully, I was able to give some information that would at least help a person to see how to look at the book of James with new eyes if you don't already look at it that way. We do not at any time get rid of the word of God. We do not at any time allow ourselves to get to the place that we say that the new covenant or the Old Testament is valid and the New Testament is invalid. If I said it backwards, I'll read it. We cannot ever say that the Old and the New Testament custom is valid only to Jew and nobody else. If you're going to be in Christ, it's going to be valid to all. If not, you're one of those that's going to say, depart from me. He's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. You work iniquity. So the question again is the is the gospel of the Old and New Testament covenant valid to the Jew first and then the world? We're taught that it's not valid. We're taught that the oldest part especially is not valid. And the new part is only valid to the Gentile and the church now, and most of the time before the Christ was ascended on high. Truth matters. The truth of his word matters. With that, I'm going to close the class, pray, and open discussion. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the truth. Thank you for the nuts and bolts that are not pretty to teach, but it gives us something to hang on to when issues come our way. And we want to know why certain things are. Help us to trust you. Help us to realize that we will not always be forgotten. You're the same. Your promise is the same. The covenant is the same. And you will deliver us from all oppression, whether it's from any other part of the world, whether it's from the religions of this world, even our own people that have determined they don't want to be grafted in. They love this world and the things that contain therein. Help us to be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in your work, because it's not going to be in vain. Amen, amen, and amen. I open this class for any discussion or rebuttal if there's any to be had today.
Hey, can you hear me?
I hear you well. You sound so intelligent.
I pretend well sometimes.
Okay. How's
I
a
would
good
like for you to look at the meaning of the word root in 11 and 18 of Romans. I mean, I think it's obvious, but I want to see if there's some specifics there that'll
okay.
help pull it out.
Okay. Romans 11:18.
Yeah.
Okay, boast not the root. Riza. Riza, the part of a plant which extends downward and fastens itself in the earth. The rocky ground of Palestine is somewhat covered. We don't care about that. That's root here. Do you want me to look it up in more dictionaries? I can.
I mean, yeah, maybe two,
Okay.
possibly three.
Okay. Let's pull BDAG. And I'm going to usually it'll highlight on, oh, I got to click. Let me click on it again. See if it highlights in it. Okay. Underground part of a plant, rears of the formation. Interesting. I'm gonna hit the right area to just open up another dictionary. Root, risen, noun, holy, that have mean figuratively to be rooted, established in faith and doctrine. Romans 11, that's what I like when they get to highlight. Abraham, Jewish people are the root from which the gospel dispensation with its blessing has sprung. Romans 11:16-18. Hebrews 12:15, the root of bitterness means a person who has turned away from following the teachings of Christ. I got one more here. This is when I cheat. So this right here is going to give me all kinds of roots because I want to see what encyclopedia dictionary. So we looked that one came up first. So it's a part of a plant with extend downward, rocky part of Palestine. We don't want that one. And I'm not in a hurry, so don't rush it. I'm curious to see if there's any juice. Let's look at the LTW. The part of a plant of a tree which receives water and nutrients from the soil. That's important. In the New Testament, this word is used only in metaphors or allegorical parables. There, it functions primarily as a symbol of origins, including spiritual and genealogical origin. For John the Baptist, if a tree produces bad fruit, it should be cut off at the root or the rhiza. Jesus uses the root imagery in his parable of the sower, the root, rhiza, providing stability and receiving water and nutrients, enable the plant to withstand troubled times. The Apostle John describes Jesus as the Lion of Judah and the root, the rhiza, of David, thus a descendant of David, both spiritually and genealogically. Now, he's talking about the root here, the root of David, and you also get the opportunity to see that he is the stem of David or the scion of David. It says, a descendant of David, both spiritually and genealogically. Likewise, Paul describes Gentile Christians as branches, clados, grafted onto the same olive tree. And notice he said that Jewish and Yehuda Christians, so that they share the same root, which is most likely the patriarchs. One more? I got more dictionary.
No, that's good. What I was thinking of was touched on a little bit in the first part of this source. I was thinking origins.
Okay.
And so with things being quite historical and always relevant, this this verse is definitely overlooked. I would say the whole chapter. Because if you start looking at the roots, you say, well, maybe the root is not the real the let's say the initial Genesis, but we got I think it's Genesis 3 where he talks about your seed, that warfare between the Nahash and the seed. So we look at the origin of this and then see, okay, I'm gonna call it a progression when we look at plants from the seed
Mm-hmm.
to the roots to the stem, the bud, and then going out into branches or what have you. So there's something that's actually there. And as it was even expressed here, it's talking about, the soil and so forth. The scriptures bear this out from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the way through. So I think if we can kind of remember this, somebody might argue that, well, I think it's Matthew where it says they're going to be cut off at the root, but see, there's always a remnant. There's always a remnant. So to look at the origin of things and like you said, an anachronism, I think I learned that word somewhere in the early 90s. I was like, okay, what does that mean? It kind of made sense to me with
Uh-huh.
chronology and stuff. But to make applications, these applications, why are applications being level two? Why are these applications being misused? Because we continue to want to cover up a whole bunch of mess. They don't really start telling, like we start getting history around the 15th century, maybe the 14th century. But you said 700 and something, I think we was
That's
talking about
right. That's
AD
right.
when you was talking about the Khazars. It's way before that.
Yep.
So if I'm rambling, then you can stop me. But
Oh no, you actually own it. And
when
I
I
can
was at
hear
Georgia
somebody
State,
else's voice.
when I was at Georgia State, I had read a little bit about okay, I don't know how to say it that well in English,
Is it?
Visigoths.
Yep. Visigoths.
And who were some of the other ones? I think
Goths,
the
Visigoths.
Goths, the Visigoths, and I remember I was sitting in that class. We were having to learn how to derive modern day Spanish from Spanish, like way hundreds of years before. Anyway, and so I'm like, why are we starting just right there? Like, I'm like, I know that history. There was some history before this. How are we only starting right here, you know. And I had taken a few linguistics classes also, and I remember this on my well from Hebrew. There's linguistics, but I don't know if they've erased it now. They'll talk about languages stemming from like one or two languages in Hebrew. I didn't get that second language. It might have been Yiddish. I don't know that they wanted to put there.
Was
I
it
don't know what it was.
was it
That would be later on. I know, but anyway, Hebrew was mentioned. So I was wondering, how do you skip all of these years to get up to the 8th century, the 9th century, and then you do another jump, because like you was referencing the Maccabees. They don't want a lot of us to know that. I had one teacher, same institution, laugh at the class. He said, "Y'all say y'all Christians and don't even know anything about the Maccabees." I had never
What?
heard of it. So I said, when I got back to the library, I said, I'm gonna at least look it up. I said,
Uh-huh.
okay. And I did a little bit of reading, wasn't making a whole lot of sense. Never heard of it. I think I'm like going way off. My point
You're
is,
not.
okay, um, I think it'd be easy for us to follow, but if anybody listens to it, they might be like, what is he talking about? The skipping that is done is so blatant. And the fact that, let's say, we were dumb, we were lazy, that's obviously wrong. But the skipping, I say, so when we look at this word, the root, and to understand, okay, there's the seed, there's the root. I mean, I maybe one day maybe we just look at every book in that's given to us in the scripture and see if there's any imagery or metaphors with regard to the plant, tree, soil. Uh, most of them probably, I think most of them going to have something anyway. To divorce that, and then he's telling you, well, who is he talking about? Don't boast against it.
Yeah,
That in Romans 3, is it 2? 2? It might be. He said to them was the oracles given. He's like, you didn't have it. So it's like Paul trying to give a right perspective on seeing this. There's a division, but we're not to be divided in him, in the truth and in the gospel. So that just really stood out to me. And he will cut off. I mean, he says that he'll cut off because people wrong, and he'll cut off like the things that need to be cut off so you can grow. That's John 15.
absolutely.
So it is amazing. There is a willful neglect, like you said, benign neglect.
Yep.
It's so willful. Um, anyway, I just wanted to see if they had some because when the person, whichever resource that was, mentioned origins, I'm like, there you go. Everybody can retain their origin except the black people.
That's right.
Everybody.
And
As a
it
matter of fact, in language courses, they teach there's something called small culture and big culture. In the big culture, they call it, I think, big C. And if I miss, hopefully I'm not remembering incorrectly. The big C generally deals with stuff like food, maybe parties, celebrations, but they won't go deeper, deeper, deeper. The other ones are deeper. And I just tell my classes every now and then, I say, look, the culture, even if it's a party or something, it's like, how did it originate and what are the thoughts behind it? I said it's the way people think and why they think like it. And then I might say something about worldview or something, but anyway. It was a good lesson. So
you made a statement about plants, and you said something about maybe get a book on that. We got plants of the Bible.
okay.
Okay. You should be able to look that up in your software.
Mm-hmm.
John Hutton Balfour, a professor of botany at the University of Glasgow, in later Edinburgh University, the plants of the Bible condenses his and other scholars' observation of the Holy Land flora. He draws out on the knowledge of biblical languages, etc. And I probably have another kind that deals with imagery. I know I have one that deals with animals and things like that as well. So I just wanted you to know that it was there. Plants of the Bible. Hard name to remember, right?
Okay. His name. What? Wait a minute. I want to see his name again. Something.
It's okay. Let me.
Plus, I'm looking in Amazon because I like electronic
It's called
kinda, but
John.
I always, if I can, I want the hardback book because I still believe in the future. I
Mhm.
believe they're gonna take stuff, and I do.
I do
Solar
too.
power. I think they got something that they can switch or trigger something to cut everybody's solar power off too. So anyway,
It's
uh,
called. It's called. His name is John Hutton Balfour, like the Balfour
okay,
Agreement.
all right,
Yeah, when that happened, if my memory is not good, it's gonna be harder for me. It's gonna be so much harder for me. Cause I mean, I do have a few books, but it ain't like a few thousand. But I wouldn't even some of the books I have I wouldn't buy. Some of them are like Andrine and I we realized some of these books They're like, y'all be copying each other, okay?
Yep.
But whenever something is cited, that's why sometimes because I really want to be able to cite things, and then I can go through and read it at my leisure. You got anything else?
It's just I think I'm gonna say part of the problem is that they did their job so well, and that like um now we were talking last night about like don't lose my train of thought. Even some of the like white people don't know.
Oh, they
And
don't.
because it is clandestine in a sense that it's through systems that most people don't look at policies or things like that, laws, some things like it's like the good old boy agreement, you know, don't look at that. I'm gonna go even as far as to say sundown towns that they had about that they've had and some still exist. And some people, because it's like, well, I don't want to think about that. It's like if we do it for ourselves, rest assured we're gonna do it for our history because we're supposed to have pride in our history, supposedly. And so that they did such a fine job of it. And then now you've got the military that fights for democracy, but I've had some persons in the military, different branches, and say told me I didn't even know the person was thinking specifically. I can't say anything about that. I said, and I looked. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I can't. I'm not supposed to say anything about thus and such." I'm like, okay. And I've had different persons in my classes over the years. I've seen some people with two, like an arm and part of a leg missing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and those are different people. You've heard me talk about how they sit where they can see the window. They on guard. Like Mr. Merritt, we sit like this because if anything happens, we already planning what we need to try to do or what we're gonna do.
Yes. And
And I'm like,
we're around people like that all the time and
yeah,
don't.
I'm like, I am not mad at you, but some of those guys, they've seen stuff and they know it's not right. I think some of them don't know, you know. That a lot of the things are wrong, but it's been done well. And to pull all of that out, now Jeremiah, you like pull it up. Now imagine I pulled up roots before. Even my mama, she was big on like every now and then a Saturday, almost the whole Saturday was dedicated to the yard, not the
Just
inside,
ruin your
not the
playtime.
inside. I'm like, I'm like, yes, ma'am. We might start at 7 or 8 o'clock. We can go get you a little bit of breakfast and clean your room up. It shouldn't be too messed up. And then we're going outside. Tim, I wanted to play forever. I wanted to play.
So did I.
Just let me play. I'm like, why is it 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and I'm just getting to play? Sunday's already gone. But my point is, she'd be like, pull up these roots. Oh gosh. And it hurt. It hurt. So to hear the truth, um, it's good, but a lot of people I'm just not gonna hear it.
Yep. When you brought that up about the root, etc., can you see this book on my screen?
Yep.
This is a good book. Oh my goodness. You'll get to find out that the it wasn't just the black people, it was the white people that didn't mean anything. So
Yeah.
you had the black, we're nothing. If you're the top black, you're still under the white trash. They call them Appalachians.
Yeah.
They talked about different parts, say that they would have a lot of time the people would have fleas and stuff all over them, and they would have lice. And when they would run for president, sometimes the people run for president would be picking the lice off the children. And you would just see that they call them. You ever hear this term that we didn't use as black people, but you hear this term a lot, and you can make a white person fight you? I'm gonna tell you one: loser, loser.
I've heard it. I haven't seen the rage from it.
Oh man, that's like the greatest insult that you're over here and you can't make it. But what ended up happening is that, many of them were brought over here because of a prison colony in Georgia, and they were going to, use for prisoners. And you have people that set up to be prisoners. Then you got people that were making just a little bit. Then they brought the slaves and make the slaves work free, and that would depress the wages. And then after you brought the slaves over here, then in order to make them feel better, you could deputize them and make them police, and they call them paddy rollers, so that they
Hmm.
could make money capturing black people. $20 per, even if you're dead, and scapping the ears, and then you could get 25 if you brought them back alive. If you had to maim them, you had to maim them. You had to do certain things like that. And then the time came that they start doing kidnapping clubs in New York, because that was another form of bringing us back. So there was always something against us, but if you could just let a person be just a little bit better than somebody else, that would make them happy. So
Yeah.
when you brought that up, it made me think of that book, because I think when I start doing more on my history channel, I'll showing what you why you laugh.
Uh, who, me or Ann?
I thought you laughed.
No, I was relocating something on my phone.
Okay.
I mean repositioning my phone.
Yeah, because I mean, we ain't even talked about rednecks and white liberals and life of a Klansman. This man's telling about his family. It's just so much that they write. It's like, yeah, this is what we did. This is how we did it. I mean, even this, they were her property, and yet they did all this stuff for suffrage, and all of our people were hanged. And when you start talking about the diaspora and you look at the certain things that had happened to our people, it's bad, because the things that happened to our people.
Can you put the previous page back up that you had the books on it?
Oh, okay. I closed it. I thought I was eating being irritating. Let me give it a second. It'll come back up. But yeah, I wanted to be sure that whenever I say something, it ain't just I say it. And I would have thought
You didn't put it back up. I
it
think
it,
you
it
thought you did.
it's loading.
Okay.
I closed it out. I didn't know you were what you call it, gathering up pawpaws. It said, I don't know why I say initialize. This should probably be up in about 60 seconds.
All right.
You weren't playing with me, were you? Like, man, don't be teasing.
I think, you know, if you as it's been phrased, something's happening and
Hmm.
people are, I hated that they chose the word like wake up, but they were smart. The devil he is very shrewd.
Hmm.
And I'm like, maybe you haven't read no Bible, but at least be reading, be searching. Cause the scripture will talk about waking up and not slumbering and not be sleeping. It looked like they were understanding it the very way they're even using it is antithetical to the scripture, but they add so much crap to what supposedly being woke is, and we need to help people understand. Like, look, like that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Like,
That's why I have to do the same thing that I do when I do deal with what is called Christian. I have to define what I mean.
yeah,
Is that the one? Was that
that's
it?
it. That's
When
it.
affirmative action was white.
I'm good.
I mean, I got a lot of them. I mean, white fragility. That's a good one. But
Hmm.
this one is raising races. It goes through and show you how we taught our children how to be racist.
Hmm.
Some people say they're not even going to talk about race no more, because people say they can't see race. Some of the stuff is so sad. And the thing for me is that instead of me dealing and calling stuff racism, I just deal with injustice, because God knows that we haven't talked about this one. slave patrols. That when you hear me talking about paddy rollers,
Yeah.
some of the stuff that happened to us. If all I did was just show the stuff of the laws that were against us, and when I go through and show Deuteronomy chapter, no, not Deuteronomy, Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26 come before Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 goes through and give you an itemized list. Leviticus 26 actually sets up, I believe, the paradigm that we see in the book of Revelation. But
Mhm.
you're already familiar with that.
In the history channel, I mean history channel, on the history page, you might want to put up where you put like the acts of war. Like of course you need to like I guess give the credit, but that was really good. When you gave the acts of war and then to see how first of all that's not not biblical, you know, the way they've done that, and but that all those things have happened to us. So, yeah, I think that's what you call war crime.
Yeah,
But is that it?
that's where I actually went to this one. And this is the one where you have the people that are Confederates. And they talked about war crimes. And what I did was I went and I read them. And when I read them, it was everything, not not everything, a lot of things they did to us and more. They didn't drop bombs on them.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, it don't even talk about we had cannons drawn on us and shot in
Yeah,
Colfax.
yeah.
We had
I think they did that in Savannah too, up on the hill. It was up on the hill, aiming the well, maybe not cannons, but they definitely was like it was a warfare, like the military against the civilians.
Gary, I didn't know what all happened with Katrina because the news didn't show me everything and I wasn't watching the news all the time. I didn't know that they would shoot people that were trying to come from one part of Louisiana when the hurricane came. It made them, wouldn't allow them to come up there to the safe ground. Okay.
Hmm.
But yet they'll fly people over here now
Yep,
and give them $10,000 a month plus a place to stay and free
yep.
medical. And I look in the time when we say, can we do the justice that the Most High say? Can we do can't afford it. Where it gonna come from? Who gonna do it? Who gonna pay for it? Where it gonna come from? And I'm looking. But yeah, so you said re repost the one that I did on war crimes before?
Yeah, I think that would
Okay,
be good.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Well, I mean, we're seeing what you mentioned is Syrians and the Lions. So I mean, we still see a lot of the same thing going on.
Gary, I saw about 3 years ago they were on horses chasing Haitians and
Yep.
beating them, and they and yet come, look, it's almost like they have. If you're coming from other countries, come and go with me to my
Yeah.
father's house. To my
There's an area, I can't remember if it's Panama. I'm
uh-huh.
trying to think if it's near Panama. The canal, it's a canal. I'm not sure if it's the Panama Canal, but there's like a highway that goes from Canada all the way down into South America. And then there, I think it's about a 40 to 80 mile stretch where it's open and they let people come and they fly planes and they fly people from other countries there. And it's open. I can't remember. It's I think it leads to a canal. So I don't remember. I was looking at it or read. Sometimes I get confused if I read it or if I watched it. I'm thinking I read it. But anyway, the government does stuff. They really, really, really doing stuff.
Well, I heard State of the Union the other night said we're gonna do more for Ukraine and we're gonna bring more. But the thing is that when are you gonna do like Zacchaeus? If anything, that our laws, let's not even just talk about individuals. Let's just talk about the laws, the things that were set in stone, that were implemented against those of us that have been scattered throughout the world.
laws that say we couldn't have, take this from us. All the way down to your shoes. If you see the shoes, if oh, you ain't supposed to have those, you take them from him, you can have them. Take the clothes from him, he can have them. I tell people to look at the video, Slavery with Another Name, and you could just see the man walk up to a man and say, you owe me the money. Got his hand on his pistol. Man say he don't. You end up spending years in jail, months in jail, free labor, because they got to do something. We got to get this King Cotton back going. And so many war crimes were done. And I say, when you look and you want to say God didn't care nothing about our people that was scattered, Titus scattered those people, a lot of 17-year-old, whatever, sent us all over the world. Some of us ran away down to Yemen. Some of them, one of us run down and where they eventually called things Negro land, where they brought other people from Spain and Portugal when they had what's called the Inquisition, because I always thought the Inquisition had nothing to do with us. That's how beautiful it was taught. But once I saw, and you see what has happened, in order, you should be able to get some insight from James. I will say this: if we as a people can't give the Most High God his time limit, but if in my life we had turned back to him, we would have a different world. Not only would we have a different world, those that oppressed, many of those would have stopped. Many people that learned to oppress didn't want to oppress. But it became my life of theirs. Hey, I'm going to oppress. I'll turn him in. I'll tell it where he's going. But then you have some that were willing to die for us. And I think they should be honored. They get denigrated, but look, I honor John Brown and his children. Somebody say, but he did it the wrong way. Well, how would you do it? You're not doing anything now. And the Most High knows he keeps good records. That's why when he sent them out of Egypt, he sent them out with plenty. Could you imagine how much the tabernacle would cost to build today? And everything was handmade. All that gold, silver, the diamonds, and look, just Aaron's garment, high priestly garment, you'd never have to work again. It's just amazing that he brought them out with great plunder. Bible call it plunder. If we don't pay attention to things that's right there in our face, to the 12 tribes, the same 12 tribes he's talking about in the book of the Revelation, the same 12 tribes that he said, I'm going to eat and drink with you in the kingdom. You know, said, I'm not going to drink it again until I eat it with you in the kingdom. He said, you all going to sit on 12 tribes judging. How the 12 tribes gone? How that ethnic group don't exist?
So you were talking about the Maldivars, in a statement or two, and what book was it or whatever? In a statement or two, what would you say? If I say Tim, why did you include the Maldivars?
Are they black? They were considered to be the original. And what ended up happening is some of my
original what?
Original Jews. Everybody originally had to be black. If you're going to believe Genesis, everybody had to be black. So that shouldn't be weird to start with. It's almost as if white was the less of all of the numbers of people anyway. Go and count the table of nations. And some of the Europeans, you will find out they were black to start with, but that's not what is given. But what happened is I had some books, old books that Logos used to have. And some of the books that Logos used to have, they transferred them from being where I had them set. Now I have to go and they'll sell them to me for 90 cents, something like that. But some of them I don't have the name anymore. and they messed up my thing.
Well, I remember what you called them. So if you can't find it, that's
No,
fine.
but while you talking or and talk, I want to pull up the why like I said, while you talking, I want to pull up one of my things. It's called James Smith, and it's in one of his books. So I do know I have it in one of my books. I just was just trying to get to it to the easy way. Sometimes you try to find something the easy way.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well,
called.
I do like how you pulled in let's call it the geography.
Mhm.
Geography is important for one reason, if not, for let's say various reasons. You told me you were the first person to tell me this. I don't remember. I think I might have been, I don't know, 18 or about 18, 19, I think. You was like, Gary, this may look boring, but these names mean something. These places mean something. And then you told me about a few apologists, and then I got a book or two, and I was like, okay, these names in these places mean something. So to have that, like, so was it Peter? No, it wasn't Peter. It was James, where you was talking about to the tribes scattered abroad.
Peter,
Um,
Peter talks about the different cities instead of the tribes. So
mhm.
Benny and all of that. So yeah. So you're not thinking Rome, you're thinking Peter. But I did. So if today I was talking about James.
Yeah. So to where these people come from, they got all these things, your ancestor and checking your roots and all that, but I'm telling you, it stopped when it get to us.
That's what Anne was showing that happened on Answers in Genesis. They
Hmm.
were doing DNA of people all over the world, and then they started doing the ancestries of the Israelites, and they got so far, and they said it wasn't the people that are over there now. It wasn't, and they said that it is a E1B1A.
Hmm.
And I forgot how, because I didn't see it, because I didn't go watch it. She said, but it abruptly stopped and went to something else.
Yep, it stopped. They just,
You watched it too?
I mean, I have watched some things with Kim Ham, and I read his book a long time ago, One Blood,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about some stuff. But I see I've seen that with other things, and it's as a practice, just as a practice, kind of like the years they want to start with. They may start with the 8th century, and then they skip up to about the 14th century, 12th century, and then they call it the Enlightenment period. You know, I'm like, what? So,
Why do you think they do that in your school? I mean, because this is the college. That's the post.
well, there's an agenda, and there's people who fund colleges.
Oh,
There's
ooh, they're
never divorce
funding.
college. Now everybody doesn't think like this that's there, but I've had a good long time to observe. Never divorce it from the money. So who's going to give the money? And so of course, if we start looking at major industries and or sectors of society, then we can see where does the money come from. You said even Rush Limbaugh said, "You show me the money, where it comes from, then you got a history already right there. What's your intention?" So when you start looking at grants, like a lot of times you don't do a grant. And I'm not saying all grants are bad, but a lot of those grants, most people don't know. They have to be they are regimented. Is that a word? They are just
Regimented.
given prescriptive things that they must do.
Okay.
And if you don't do that, then you can either lose the money or you won't keep it or whatever. And so when you get to let's say university level, especially R1, R1 means R1 or flagship means it's sort of a trendsetter for other universities. R1 means major research university. They're ranked. So just because you see the word university doesn't mean it's like one of the main ones. It can be, but an R1, and it may mean something higher than that. But anyway, they get their monies or fundings from people. So of course that's going to be big families. It's kind of like the football program. You got the football program, that's football, but take it even higher. Now, what's the doctrine or the tone? Because we're going to create people who can go out and be productive in society. And then then elite, not everybody knows this, but there's a certain amount of elitism that comes from it. Then you've got it broken down into what field, or is it a STEM? Is it this?
What's the
It,
STEM?
STEM is science. Now, actually, it's got more to it now. It's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's been changed a little bit for some, and I forgot what it is to incorporate, I think, a part of the humanities or something. When you look, so when I say administration, there's administrative duties, but then there are high level administrative duties when you start talking about president, uh, and those that come down. So there are levels of it. The higher up in that you do, you make money. You might make 150,000, 200,000, depending on what university, $700,000 a year.
Mm.
So if someone's helping fund this, or there's a certain alumni, you better follow that. You better follow that. So it just trickles down. And not everybody knows it. Even some of the people who have positions. Because I asked somebody a long time ago. I said, "What's your agenda?" They had no idea what I was talking about. Because I was a little warm. I said, "What's your agenda?" It's okay.
Did you get looked at very hard?
I was serious. I'm finding that a lot of people are duped. You know, 'cause think about it. Even from when I was little, there were certain things that I used to think I was like, this don't make sense. It didn't start with me. It was going on before me. It's a progression. Television to show you the progression. The 50s, I mean, you had beds that were like twin beds, like with like enough room for another bed to get between, and you could still kind of walk through it. Now everybody in one big bed or not.
Lord have mercy.
When I say everybody, I mean everybody.
I say, Lord have mercy. Wow. This is what they've done to us.
Tim,
Yes.
if you just type in the history of the Jews in India and look up the Wikipedia article.
That's the Maldives, the Jews in India. Okay, thank you. But I was looking for my own books, but see how good she is, Gary.
Yes. Do you see it?
You like being grown, don't you?
Sometimes, sometimes it hurt.
No, you have to pay those
Always.
bills. You have to pay those bills.
Oh man.
Oh, okay, I don't want no Amazon. I just open a new doggone window. New.
I'm gonna look it up. Is it Maldavar?
No, it's MAL. History of
Okay.
the Jews.
It's Malabar.
Okay.
Malabar.
That's why I was
Malabar.
spelling it wrong, right?
Right. You're saying it wrong too.
If I say it wrong, I'm gonna spell it wrong. I promise. Almost everything I misspell is because I pronounce it incorrectly.
Mm.
I was like, dog, that's like, why is it not showing up? All this stuff I got. Okay, history of the Jews, India, right?
In India, right? And it's the Wikipedia article. I know Wikipedia is not a prayer book, but it's not bad. You have
They have stuff where you can
Great
go in and
source.
check it. I mean,
Right,
they
right.
give you what their sources. Sponsor, there it is. Wikipedia. Share the screen with Gary. Gary's a young man in comparison to me. After a while, Gary, I could be 90, and if you're still living too, you can still be a young man. Well, you'll like that, won't you?
You think?
I said it. I don't want to say something I don't really believe.
I'm finna say, I think somebody was teaching the other night that just cause something in the Bible don't mean it kill the truth.
Okay, want me to keep going
Okay, if you
down?
scroll down,
Okay,
you'll start seeing different sections.
that's a Malabar. So
Yeah.
I've been calling it Maldivar, and I don't know how I got that.
Keep scrolling down until you get to the sections where you see Jewish groups in India. You see coaching Jews.
Coaching.
You're gonna be
That's
stacked on top of
coaching.
it. Okay, yours is different. Yours look different
Oh,
than
that is
mine.
He said the
interesting.
oldest Indian communities in the erstwhile Cochin Kingdom, the traditional account of the traders of Judea arrived in, what is that, Kraganore and the port of Cochin 562. This is before the Khazars was doing what they did, and more Jews came as exile from Israel in 70 CE. Titus destroyed the temple, entered the world, entered the temple system. After the destruction of the second temple, many of these Jews' ancestors passed on the account that they settled in India when Hebrew King Solomon was in power. This was the time when teak wood, ivory, spices, monkey peacocks were popular trade and culture. We keep going, Precious?
You don't have to read it. You wanted to see the
Yes.
Malabar.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna,
Wait a minute. You see the people? You see the picture?
yeah.
Read it.
Mhm.
This is
Malabarese,
Portuguese.
Malabarese Jews are depicted by the Portuguese in the 16th century. Okay. And the
Now, if you read the one above it, it
arrival
says,
of Jewish pilgrims at
listen
68
to the
AD.
language. Listen to the language. Arrival of Jewish. Now it'll tell you, then it say these was just Jews, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ones on the top that nobody, no, there's no person there that did this depiction you can see here like it did with the one down here. It says this is what the Portuguese say the Jews look like in Malabar and Cochin, right?
Right. And these
That
are
one on the
going to,
top,
mm-hmm.
these on the top, there's no, they just wrote that and put a picture there, okay?
Yep.
When you read the text though, when you start reading, they start explaining that, you know, the fair skinned ones, the ones right there in that picture, the
Mm-hmm.
skinned Jewish component of the Jews were the Ashkenazis and Sephardic. So this is supposed to be a depiction of the Ashkenazis and the Sephardic Jewish people. I don't know where they got that from, but okay.
But think about when they had what they called the Black Plague, and they were saying the Jews were the fault, and they sent the Jews out of Lisbon, Portugal. And you're saying these are the Portuguese, they will be get the swarthy Jews.
Right. So this is the picture that they painted and
Yep.
said this is what the Jews look like.
And look at, are they running around naked? Are they breast
The
out? Are
one
they,
on the tree right there, he kind of
we got to,
he kind of back there working with,
I
he
mean,
got his
you,
loincloth on.
but
It's too funny.
you got a certain way you dress, but look at her.
Yes,
Look
she's
at him.
fancy.
She is. You would wear something that color.
That uh-huh.
And look at her hair, Andrina.
Those are braids.
And look at his hair.
Afro.
Hmm. It might even be twisted.
So I would just wanted to let you see that.
But I'm going to check myself. It's like, is that the problem? Because it's like I'm like, how my computer? Because I've been using this thing for years and I got all kind of notes in it. But I'm pretty sure it's the word. It's like Google. Type in the wrong word if you want to. I clicked on this one. War elephant. Portuguese.
Just the artist. That's the artist that
Yeah,
painted.
I
Yeah.
see. I see. I got you, but I know that there's some I would say if Dante Fortson, he
Mhm.
got some of the best information. And it's like, don't tell me my stuff gone, because I know where to go back and get it, at least right now. But this is good that you were able to pull that up. I just want to see from myself, was my problem my misspelling the words. I was like, all these years I've been studying. Mm-mm. But when I talked about the tribes, Andrina, had you seen the issues with the tribes, that the people are, that they want to make them not be who they are,
and that they would literally, huh?
That was shocking.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was that they tried to make it the church. The
Yeah.
church for the 12 tribes.
Yep, yep.
You know, that is okay. All I can say is okay. But you know, it brought something to mind because what they're what they're pretending is that this is a new concept. Like, oh, all of a sudden in the New Testament, they just making stuff up. Everything just brand new right now. And everything is about the church. And we mean the Gentiles. They don't mean when they speak, they don't even really discuss Israel and the Gentiles being the church. Most times they don't. It's just them. But they act like like this is something brand new, and that they can kind of, you know, muddle with it and confuse you with it. But in the book of Acts, I can go back to, you went to the book of Acts, didn't you?
I did.
It was it in 15?
I did when they were doing what they were doing.
So remember in chapter 13, Paul goes to a synagogue and he preached pretty much the Old Testament. I mean,
Mhm.
at least. And then he gets to the end and he says he was supposed to come to them. He was going to be a light to the Gentiles. Remember this?
Yeah, and he goes because they didn't want it, he gonna give it to somebody else,
And he said it was supposed to first come to you.
right? I'm
But
gonna
now
turn,
you
I'm
counted
gonna turn
yourself
to it,
unworthy. We'll go to the Gentiles.
right?
But even the scripture he used about them being a light to the Gentiles, that he used that scripture and it's in Isaiah 49.
See, that's 1346. And Paul Westbowler said it was necessary that the word should have first been spoken to you, seeing you put it from you, judge yourselves unworthy. Lo, we turn to the Gentiles.
So he says in there about being a light. We supposed to keep going. Let's see.
Oh, keep going. Okay, let me go back
Wait a
down.
minute. Go. I can't.
Seeing that you put it from yourself, unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentile. For God's for so hath the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be
Yes.
a light of the Gentile, that you should be salvation to the ends of the earth, not they to be it to you.
Now that scripture comes from Isaiah 49.
Okay.
Because this is not new that it should have first come to them.
All right, we
And
Isaiah
they
49. Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken, ye people from afar. For Yahweh has called me from the womb. From the bowels of my mother has he made mention of my name. He has made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand he has hid me. That's cool. Hidden sword. He has made me a polished shaft. In his quiver he has hid me. And said unto me, Thou art my servant, in whom I will be glorified. And I will be then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for naught and in vain. Surely my judgment is with me, and my work with my God. And now saith Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be a servant, to bring again to him.
to
Though
bring Jacob again to him,
I didn't mean to skip. I'm glad you were reading with me. Though Israel be not scattered.
gathered, though Israel be not gathered.
You read it.
Yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord.
I'm gonna move the interlinear. All right.
Yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, first to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Isn't that the same thing?
It is. And Paul said, y'all don't want your part. And since you don't want your part, I'll give it to them. I wonder if we could see
But he's
everything.
the same one that said he has not forgotten his people.
Yes. I wonder what it would be like if we could see everything we have forfeited from the Lord. You know what it feels like to know you lost $100 or 500?
Right. That was just at one synagogue,
Yes.
in one area.
Be like Esau.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Crying. I'm glad she showed me that. Now I'm gonna show you something, Gary, because of her making me realize, you know, you can't spell anymore. I know I used to be able to spell, but see all that stuff I had Malabar. Look at this. Just beginning to text the Coltrane Road. The first colony of Black Jews were planted in Malabar by Nebuchadnezzar, and was the first colony. Look, and that was the first colony of white that was founded by refugees, Flora in Jerusalem. I know I had a lot of stuff on Malabar Jew, but I called them Maldabar. I gotta do better than that. If I'm gonna mispronounce something, it need to be something insignificant. I mean, we already done enough with what she showed me in Wikipedia that I'm good.
Well, we're not gonna throw you away for that.
Let me do it like that lady that do like the seal.
It's funny because the husband looked like a Warren.
I wasn't gonna say it. Well, I appreciate you all. I decided that I wanted to do an introduction to James in a different way than I've seen it done before. I wanted to deal with it because it seems as if we're not dealing with who we are, it seems like we're always dealing with get rid of that Old Testament, get rid of that law, and they go hand in hand. If you can either get rid of it or you can reinterpret it, you can literally do like what that man was trying to do in that Denzel Washington movie called The Book of Eli. He was wicked. He was a murderer. He was a thief. He was a fornicator or pornea, and he would sell women to other men, and yet he wanted that Bible. He wanted that Bible. He knew I could control people. And people say, well, that's why the Bible ain't no good. How about this? How about people wanting a car so they can go somewhere, or they can run over people, or they can plow stuff? Why about people wanting a chemical that it can heal as well as kill? The word of God has power. Whether you use it for right or wrong, there's power in it. And yet you got our people saying ain't got no power in it. It's just written by white men to make the black man docile. I can tell you haven't read it.
Mm.
I'll just tell you this much. I haven't found one. And I'm pretty sure somebody will argue with me. Show me another system that we can cross-examine and see that all of us could live in peace and justice would be served that will supersede the Holy Scriptures. And we don't have them all. People say, well, we got the 66, that's all God had. Well, where's the book of Idol? Where's the book of the wars of the Lord? Where the book? I'm just saying it mentioned the books it's not even we don't have anymore, or at least they say we don't.
Mhm. It's the last part of that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth reading. Like starting at the 22nd verse. Because you prayed and you said, will we always be forgotten?
Yes, Lord.
So if you read that, that's sort of kind of what you would say. And he has an answer for that.
Number 50.
49,
I'm at 49.
verse 22.
Thank
Start
you.
at 22 and go to the end.
I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it in my slow voice. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim the Lord God. Behold, I will lift up mine hand to the Gentiles and set up my standard to the people, and they shall bring thy sons in their arms, and thy daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders, and kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and they shall lick up the dust of thy feet. And thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. And they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Shall the prey be taken from the mighty, or the lawful captive delivered? But thus saith Yahweh, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contendeth with thee, and I will save thy children, and I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood as sweet wine. And they shall know that I, Yahweh, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Yaakov. I just say Kent. that thing sweet right there. And this is why when I tell people, I believe we should be prepared whichever way how the Lord want to do it. Some of these people coming in this country may be his plan to overthrow. Some of that meddling we've done to overthrow. Some of these experiments that they've done in people's body to overthrow. We need to be drawn back to him and prepared in our heart to lead. We should never want to go back to bondage again. Never.
Mm.
Ever. The little bondage that we have right now, when we get free of it, we should want to be the bond servant of Yahweh. When I learned about James Berry Meacham yesterday, and he was buying those black people from slavery and they would work for him so they could buy some other people free. And he had to use a boat. He had to build a boat to give our children education. Never heard of him before yesterday, but I will know more about him. There have been men that have risen up, and we can't get people to want it. But they understand this, Andrina. He doesn't forget the remnant, whether the remnant has to be 2 or 3 in this time, 7,000 in that time. I don't get them all, but I keep record of the remnant. That's important to us.
That's what he said in verse 15. Can a woman forget her nursing child? That she should have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you.
I like 16 when you tie it together. I'm gonna use this term. Somebody gonna say I'm being wrong, but I I have tattooed you. I have graved you on the palm of my hands. And your walls are continually for me because that's supposed to be your security, right? Your walls to keep people out. The manage things in your walls. They're continually before me. I don't know what all he has for us, but let's force ourselves, get our minds right to count it joy as we move forward to pleasing him and walking in his power. And you got something else precious.
Oh,
You
that's
got some thunder.
it.
Gary, you got anything else? You brought a cyclone. Well, with the Lord's help, I'll try to bring some more clouds of darkness so that we can show the blackness of darkness forever for those that hate him and show that after the storm, when he brings about his peace on us, we're going to say, great and marvelous is his works and his power, that he have destroyed the whore, that he have destroyed her and her seed. And now there really is peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Thank you all for joining me. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen and
Amen.
amen. Shalom, everybody.
No.
Love you all.
Love you
Y'all too.
too.